All right, there's no question about it. The Tea Party is really rubbing the political establishment the wrong way. Our next guest is a member of the Tea Party caucus, but he got criticism last week from some Tea Party colleagues after supporting Speaker Boehner's debt ceiling bill back then. Joining us, Republican Representative Alan West of Florida, and I should add, in my tease, I talked about him being a defector, and he has teased me about the fact of all his military service, and I call him a defector from the Tea Party, or ask if he's a defector, so my apology.
No, that's not a problem. I honor my commitment and my oath to this country.
Indeed you do. Okay, so what's the story? You voted yesterday.
Yes, I certainly did. Well, I think that when you look at the conversation that's changing in Washington, D.C., who would have thought a year ago that we'd be talking about cutting spending? Yes, we did raise the debt limit, but we raised the debt limit by saying we're going to have equal or exceeding spending cuts. You know, one of the things that I was not really warmed over about was this commission that comes later on. We had a very good meeting, the House GOP members with the Speaker today, to talk about how we can influence that committee, possibly putting one of our senior subcommittee chairmen on that three-member panel that we're going to send from the House. But you have an opportunity to have a balanced budget amendment, something I think we have not had in 15 years. You do have the opportunity to have cuts on federal government spending, something that we have not had. So we're starting to, I think, turn this thing around for the first time in quite some time.
I do not deny the fact that this has been an enormous sort of shift in thinking among many on Capitol Hill, but there are a couple of things that are rather curious. One is that the bill just came out a few hours ago, basically, and that it's 75 pages and sort of the devil's in the details. We don't know exactly, what the details are. When we talk about spending cuts, even in the first group, who's getting cut, how much. We know sort of the categories, but we don't know realistically who's getting cut. Then you've got this second thing that's happening in November, this super Congress. We don't know who's on the Congress, and no commission has been particularly successful. At least the Gang 6 ran into trouble, and the Bowles-Simpson Commission was virtually ignored, so we're supposed to have faith in the second one. The other problem, too, is that these cuts, these terrific spending cuts, I think are coming at the back end in 2014 after the election, when everybody has been up for election. So it's sort of hard to sort of, I don't deny you've had a huge shift in the thinking and a huge impact, but there's some other,
well, let's put it, in the first year you have $21 billion of cuts. Maybe that's not $21 billion in the first year. In the second year you have $47 billion.
And that's what year, 2013?
That's 2013.
Okay.
Now, of course, that's an important thing is we need to do something with the Senate. We need to do something with the White House, and then we can do some of the bigger things with spending.
When did the big cuts come?
Well, I think that that's what has to happen. You're not going to get the big cuts right now.
But we're getting them after the election. See, the problem is the American people are saying, wait a second, you're doing this after the election? These are huge.
Yeah, but I think the American people have to somewhat manage their expectations. I'll give you a great example from a military aspect. This was a 70-75% plan. There's no doubt about it. I read the bill. I got in this morning very early at 8 o'clock, read through it and got an understanding. But in the military, you can take a 70-75% plan, and if you can execute it very well to 100% capability, then you're doing the right thing. If we sat around right now worried about coming up with a 100% plan, then we're never going to get anywhere. And I think that's the most important thing that we must do.
Well, I like that. I like the fact that there's admission to 75% plan, because sort of the.
And I've always said that.
No, and I don't mean it, but just in general, everyone's acted like this is like such a huge step forward. But I sometimes think that's oversold the American people. The American people have to realize what they're really getting. It's not this huge structural change that starts tomorrow. At all. It's not, but I think it's the first step. It's the incremental step that we have to take. It takes 5 miles to turn an aircraft carrier, so at least we're starting that motion. The most important thing is if we can get past 2013, 2014, we can get the right people that come in here and start with the structural reform, start prioritizing the spending bills that we have, start prioritizing the appropriations bills. I think one of the things we need to look at is some of these appropriations bills that we're sending over, they ought to be on a 2-year cycle. Some of the more, prioritized, the higher tier 1 type defense, and some of the others, transportation infrastructure. But right now, at least the most important thing is people are talking about where can we cut spending in Washington, D.C. Now, I think it's sad that we have to have such draconian nuclear option measures on top of this Senate to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do to come back with that $1.2 to $1.5 trillion of spending cuts before the end of this year. Congressman, thank you. I know you got a busy couple weeks, including some town hall meetings back home and everything, to be working hard.
Always a pleasure to be here.